Hello, my name is Leah Crawmer.
And I'm Jordan Hall. We are excited to be here today representing the Troy FFA chapter of Missouri in the National FFA Agriscience Fair within Division 4 of the category of Social Systems.
Zippy Duvall, President of the American Farm Bureau Federation, stated in March of 2020, "Empty shelves can be frightening, but empty fields and barns would be devastating." This statement was made just as the nation was starting to stay home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Millions of Americans began losing their jobs and wondering whether there was enough food to sustain their family.
Restaurants started to close and processing facilities began to shut down due to quarantine. We began to wonder about the effects of COVID-19 was having on the food supply chain and whether the impact on agriculture producers could be long-lasting. Throughout research, we were able to conduct a social experiment evaluating COVID-19's impact on the American food supply. In order for our experiment to be successful, we knew that research, collaboration, and following the scientific method was essential.
As Jordan and I began to collaborate about this process, we realized we had a lot to learn about the American food supply chain. We started by interviewing people within the industry to see what commodity and economic trends were occurring. Keith Witt, a large-scale grain farmer, stated, "With less transportation occurring, the need for ethanol has decreased, which could be very concerning for corn prices."
We then spoke to a local meat processor who said that people were wanting to ensure they had meat in their freezer and that he was booked out 6 months with processing orders. Tim Mueller, a Whitty Brothers Trucking, said, "The refrigerated trucking industry has stayed strong in the Midwest, but the biggest struggle has been the food manufacturing companies cutting back their production due to social distancing or plants shutting down due to COVID-19 outbreaks." Perhaps the most disappointing news reported came from the Heritage Foundation. Since the school years are cut short, milk demand has decreased, forcing dairy farmers around the country to dump their milk surplus each day.
After discussions with our FFA advisor and parents, it was determined that independent variables would include a series of questions pertaining to the habits of food consumption and product purchasing. The dependent variables were the effects of COVID-19 on consumers' habits and the food industry.
We are satisfied with the results of our experiment. We realized, however, it does come with some limitations. In our experiment, we were able to successfully survey 95 participants. Our potential margin of error was 10% according to the sample size versus margin of error chart on SurveyMonkey.
Analysis of our results found that 89% of those surveyed made one trip per week to the grocery store before social distancing guidelines were put into place, as opposed to 67% during the pandemic, a decline of 22% of the grocery store's weekly clientele.
Food supply shortages were definitely seen with products, such as meat, eggs, and dairy. 92% of patrons said that their local grocery store adequately supplies consumers with those products before the pandemic, and only 11% said their grocery stores were able to keep up with the demand during the pandemic, a drastic decline.
As a result of the pandemic, 63% of consumers noticed increase in prices of goods. 70% saw dramatic increases in the prices of meat, while more than 25% of those surveyed saw prices of dairy and produce increase.
Surveyed consumers were asked to infer who was to blame for the significant shortfall of goods and the price hikes. 58% stated consumers were purchasing more than necessary, while 19% blamed the processing plants. Only 2% blamed the farmers for the shortfall.
Consumers credited American farmers when asked on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how important the production agriculture industry is in America. 92% said their importance was a 10 out of 10.
Ultimately, we were able to conclude that COVID-19 has drastically impacted the United States food consumption and practices, thus supporting our hypothesis. If COVID-19 causes communities to begin to implement social distancing guidelines, then consumers will alter their methods of purchasing goods now and into the future.
Throughout this experiment, we not only learned a great deal about the American food supply chain, but we also learned about ourselves. While collaborating and working together, we were able to communicate effectively with members of the community, industry workforce members, our ag advisor, and utilize a scientific method to conduct an experiment while following pandemic procedures.
We feel confident that the skills and knowledge in which we developed throughout our research will be utilized to help us impact America's #1 industry,
agriculture,
for years to come.
Thank you.